I invite you to join me again on that journey I was taking through those 20 years of making up my mind. Toward the end of them, of those 20 years, I had decided unequivocally as to where I was placing myself in relationship to those many advertisements of healing modalities that came through my office and in through the literature. And I decided it was time to put it out of my mind. It had occupied my mind continuously for a number of years. And when Dr. Adams was presenting this morning, it reminded me of that experience. I decided it was time to put it away. Think on other things. And that I did for 5 years. Just before I took away the thoughts and no longer studied that subject, I wrote a series of articles to put in the local church monthly newsletter that went to each of the individuals. So over a period of perhaps 6 months, I put a number of articles outlining the basic principles to help any other that might be wondering what to do. And then I closed it, and for 5 years I had nothing more to do with the subject. One day I received a call from a Dr. Walter Thompson, chairman of the board for 3ABN, inviting me to join with he and a Dr. Mani Vasquez, then vice president of the North American division, for a 3-hour seminar on the 3ABN. This was May of 1998. I didn't know Dr. Thompson. I had not discussed any of this subject with other doctors. I was amazed. But eventually I learned it was from those articles I had written in our church paper that somehow he received this information. He was looking for an MD to be in this panel, on this panel with Dr. Vasquez. Dr. Vasquez was a minister, head of all non-English speaking churches of North America. A Mexican gentleman, really a man of God. So we had our 3-hour session, and I thought nothing more of it. When we left there, Dr. Walter Thompson asked me if acupuncture was to be shown to be physiologic, where do you stand then on this? And I recognized he was wrestling with the same question in his mind. He was looking for my answer. I thought for a bit and I said, with all I know now, I would have to say that I would again advise to reject, because it carries so much baggage with it. Even if it were to be shown to be physiologically related to relief of pain or something that way. And that seemed to satisfy him. About 6 months later, I was in Russia, visiting Zaovsky, the university, and I went over to the press. And while I was at the press, I was asked to come over and listen to a story. A worker at the press had some abdominal pain the doctors could not diagnose, and he could not work. But finally he went to a faith healer that rubbed his earlobe for a while, and then made a diagnosis, treated him for intestinal parasites. He passed the worms. His pain went away, and he was well. They asked me, well, what do you think of this? I says, I don't doubt a bit. But what it was accurate, it worked. But the whole divination process is based in astrological concepts. The foreman of the printing press, a Russian that understood English, just got angry. And he sat down and he took his shoe off and showed me the bottom of his foot. And he said, There's 7,200 nerve endings here, and if we do this and that, this will accomplish similar. I should have kept my mouth shut, but I said that too is centered in astrological concepts. And that was the end of the conversation. He was angry, and I felt bad. I really felt bad. Here I was making a first acquaintance, and I had totally turned someone off against me. And so when I went home, I said, I'll send you some writings, the writings that I had done. I sent him the doctoral degree that Dr. Vasquez had written at Andrews on the subjects of New Age. I heard nothing more till I was getting ready to go to Poland for evangelism one day, and I got an email the day before I was to leave. We invite you to come to Russia to conduct a seminar on the subject of mystical medicine. This seminar is to be for the health educators of each of the old countries, for each conference out of all of these old conferences of the Soviet Union. I had never given a seminar, I'd never really given a talk on the subject, just the 3ABN conversation. And that led to then a series of visits in Russia. I asked Dr. Vasquez, Dr. Thompson to join with me on that. And then I've been from one end to Russia to the other conducting seminars in this subject. It's an endemic problem in that country. We went into conferences that for only 5-6 years had there been the knowledge of God there. The ministers hadn't been knowledge of God for more than 4 years. And so you had a brand new people with an ancient culture and medical approaches to deal with. You were faced with most of the medical educators as physicians or nurses or pharmacists. And so they had been earning their living on some of these modalities. Here you are, a foreigner, invited to an area that you don't speak the language, and you're to bring to them a knowledge of spiritualism, how it infiltrates medical care. And it was for that reason that I dug so deep. I began to study once again after 5 years to look for the foundation, not to parley with them on whether it did something or didn't, but to look for the foundation from which it had its origin. And I can be grateful to say that my experience in the 7 years of doing that was accepted and received with open arms. The last time I presented a program there, I had been to the Ukraine and then presented to the Adventist Health Association, the doctors and dentists of that country, this program. I had 3 days. And when I went to Russia for another 2 weeks. When I got through, they says, well, when are you coming back? Well, this costs money. And I got the idea to put together a DVD of the seminar in Russian rather than through translation. And that has saved me some trips. But it has traveled around the churches of Russia. And I've had stories come back that as the information was presented to the churches, people would say, stop the presenter and say, stop, let us get on our knees and ask for forgiveness. So it must have had some value, and I'm grateful for that. Grateful to not have to go because of so many times, but also that it was useful in a country where this was motherhood to use many of these methods. They would type under the blankets how to do some of these alternative methods like they did the Bible and pass them apart. One of the sons of a lady that did it, he was a minister, he told me this. So I no longer go to Russia, and this is my first opportunity in the United States to share outside of 3ABN. I want you to think of 2 Kings, if you would. the first chapter of 2 Kings. Ahab had been king, but then he died, and his son Ahaziah took his place. He was the reigning king. There in the first chapter of Kings. And Ahaziah fell through the lattice in his upper chamber. Crashed down through, and he was injured. They laid him on a bed, and now he sent messengers to Baalzebub, god of Ekron, to inquire, will I get well or no? He sent his messenger, and in the meantime, God sent a message to Elijah. He says, go meet this messenger. Send back the question to the king, is there no God in Israel, that you go to inquire of Baalzebub, the king of Ekron? And so he went back, and the king says, what was that man dressed like? Oh, he says, that's Ahab. I'm sorry, that's Elijah. So he sent 50 soldiers with their captain to go arrest Elijah and bring him to the king. And as they came to Elijah, remember what happened? Fire flashed down and consumed 50 soldiers and their captain. Soon another 50 were out looking for Elijah, and they too found him. They too were consumed by fire. Ahaziah was not to be denied his prize, who was Elijah. He sent the third 50 with a captain. But this captain, when he got near Elijah, he got on his knees, and he said, have pity on us, have mercy on us. And God told Elijah, go with him back to the king. And so Elijah came to the king. And he pointed directly at the king, and he says, is there no God in Israel that you have to go and inquire of Baalzebub, the god of Ekron? I think of this story when you think of the phenomenal knowledge that we have been granted in the lifestyle and health and healing. Why would we want to inquire of the god of Ekron? This morning, I wish to bring to you a little of the study of the Ayurveda, the ancient Indian healing tradition. I don't enjoy bringing the negatives so much here, but yet this is important because the principles of this practice are the basis of what is around us, permeating almost every type of practice. And the principles are simple to understand. And if we can see those, I think we will find it easy to identify that which we would choose not to use. The wisdom of the East. I was 8 years ago in attendance at a women's ministry put on at the local large Adventist church Sunday afternoon. And they were presenting the wisdom of the East, the modalities that we would choose not. Fortunately, their crowd was very, very small. And I knew all of these ladies, devout individuals, my friends. But I was amazed. And I would want to ask a question, but they did their best to keep me from asking questions. And I wasn't going to interrupt. I had no intentions of trying to say something that would embarrass. But they presented 3 modalities that I would not choose, and I believe truly were of spiritualism. I went home and wrote a letter and sent to them. A letter explaining my understanding. And I think I never heard again of any of this coming. But I heard the expression there, we don't know how it works, but it's the wisdom of the East. So I went home and decided, what's the wisdom of the East? And so I began to do a study to find out the wisdom of the East. And as we look at the particular discipline called Ayurveda, which began 1700 BC or thereabouts, which is the basic ancient medical care treatment method of India. Ayus meaning life, and Veda knowledge, so the knowledge of life. It was put together by holy men that went back and gathered together in the footlands of the Himalayas. And there they came out with the religion Hinduism. And Ayurveda is not simply a treatment method, a medical method that the Hindus decided to have for treatment. It is Hinduism itself. In the healing prospects, the very principles of Hinduism is used, as I understand it. The Veda is believed to be divinely revealed 3,500 years or more past, believed to contain the knowledge, the rhythm, the structure of the universe, the secrets to health and to illness, all based upon astrology. The origins explained the creative principle, the one, the self. Remember all of those words we looked at earlier today? The ultimate unified energy field is what the modern physicists would call it, those that believe in this, the consciousness. The manifest universe can be seen as the play of two great antagonistic forces which are continually creating and tearing down and building up and destroy all that exists in the universe. The Chinese circle of harmony can illustrate it, but they have the words Rajas and Tamas instead of Yin and Yang. According to the wisdom of Ayurveda, the mind-body has the intelligence to heal itself. Remember we showed the picture of that individual with all those marma points. That's the beginning of mind-body discipline, the concept of the flow of the energy. And the body has the ability to heal itself if you can just manipulate it right. So the Ayurveda treatment methods, the fundamental above all else is meditation. There's the yoga exercises, and those two basically go together. You can almost use the same word interchangeably. If you want to get technical, you say there's a difference. Massage, maybe with essential oils. Diet, herbs, mineral substances. Mercury was the great substance for centuries used. Aromas, system of cleansing, toxins. Let's take them one at a time. The intelligence that operates the cosmos, which governs the migrations and seasons and orbits of the planets, also operates at the level of the human physiology. The sole function of Ayurveda is to promote the flow of that intelligence. Remember all of those names we had, synonyms of this intelligence. It's not God, it's the energy, they said, but they call it God when you can raise it to its highest level. Ayurveda disease is the result of the imbalance. And the basis of all treatments in Ayurveda system is the balancing of the life forces within us. No matter what you call it, the basis is balancing. Meditation primary above everything else. Satanic concept is to balance energy rather than be in harmony with the laws of physics and chemistry ordained by God. Remember, we're told that disease is the end result of the body's expression when it has disobeyed the laws of health. The spread of Ayurveda went to Tibet, to China, to Indonesia, and all the rest of Asia. Yes, Chinese had a great influence and still does, but probably Ayurveda more than any other, more widespread. The 11th century to Persia, Arabia, to Europe in the Middle Ages. This comes from a medical historical textbook. Medical practice in the United States in the 1700s and 1800s. There were many things there that I can see and trace that evidently had been into Europe and then came on to America. The bloodletting and some other popular things of the West. And now it's back with us. The meditation as the primary tool, fundamental in balancing therapy. It also includes, as we mentioned, herbs, diet, minerals, and aromas. the essentials of yoga: position, postures, asanas, relaxation of the muscles. But now the two most critical: deep rhythmic breathing. Did you hear me in the back? Deep rhythmic breathing. And something to bring passivity of the mind, pronouncing mantras. Man and tra, these are Sanskrit words put together, meaning take leave of knowing, absence of knowing. And so a mantra is used to bring passivity of mind, silence of thinking, cessation of thought. And the deep breathing, you're concentrating on the breathing, and while you're doing that, repeating, even if it's a Bible verse. It's a method by which Satan has learned can bring the mind into neutral. The particular vibration or the rhythm of the brain in the alpha state. Beta is our thinking state. Theta is where we go into hypnosis. But they bring it into a neutral phase. And this is a primary thing that moves from here right into Christianity with different terms. Widespread across the world in Christianity today. The pranayama is the prana breathing. Yana, breathing through the nose, remember the sun energy and the moon energy. Deep breathing, passivity of mind, relaxation. The fundamentals. And that breathing through the right nostril, the sun energy going down the Pingala, down into the bottom chakra. And the moon energy through the left nostril down the Ida to there to form and begin to work and move its way upward. Yoga and meditation is widespread. It is across maybe 30 million people practicing at this time. 2 years ago, there was 20 million, but there has been a great increase since that time. And it's taken with the idea that it's great for dealing with stress. And people, a lot of people feel so much better. They do control stress. But what are you doing in yoga? You are putting your mind at neutral position. I don't care if you're using a Christian word, a sentence, or a paragraph, and the repetitiveness over and over begins to lose a meaningness. And the depth of breathing, concentrating it on, brings the mind into a passivity, neutral zone where you have lost your protection. And it opens it wide, no matter what term goes with it. The goal of yoga. Yoga means to join, union, the means by which the human soul can be completely united with the Supreme Spirit, pervading the universe, and thus attain liberation. The Hindu's great goal in life is to get out of life. We want to prolong it. He wants to get out of it because he believes he's going round and round, and he's not sure where the next round is going to wind up. And he wants to join the spirits of the universe. And the yoga is the great goal is to meet up with the great spirit of Brahman, their chief god. And so this whole process in Hinduism is to escape this life, have a better life as a spirit being. In the Los Angeles Times, it carried an article and a quote by a Dr. Herbert Benson, who is well known in the fields of psychology. He's a professor of medicine at Harvard University, and he is a great promoter of many of these mind-dealing methods. And he said that in his clinical experience, about 60 to 70% of those who begin meditation type of practice, primarily for medical reasons, often at the recommendations of their doctor, adopt the teachings. Quotes Buddhism. 60 to 70%. For medical reasons, want to move on. Dr. Willis, in his book, health director of the Union in England, was the director, Dr. Willis. He has a book that you can get in the ABC, excellent book on meditation and its dangers. And he points out there this same basic thing. Two particular individuals he mentions speak about how people, when they practice this, they want to go further. They like what they've had, now they want to get deeper into it, and it gets into the Eastern. How does this approach Christianity? When I was in Russia, and I'd use a translator, I didn't use the word to meditate, talking about meditating on the Bible, prayer, and study, because that only meant meditation of the yoga type. So you didn't use that word. You were looked at askance. So I got to use the word contemplation, and now I'm in trouble here with that one. Because sweeping through Christianity, we have what's known as panentheism. What is panentheism? Well, you know what pantheism is? God in the plant, in the rock, and everything. Panentheism is where God is still a personal being, but he's also in the plant and in the rock. This is basically what Kellogg was involved in. And this panentheism is approached and propagated through Christianity by the contemplative prayer. That demands a silence of the thought. A spiritual formation is another word. Spiritual disciplines, centering prayer, Christian yoga, sacred space, the silence, walking in a labyrinth, all saying a mantra and having concentration on breathing. Most of them, not all of them, on those two. So, but it's putting the mind into a passivity phase. This is its purpose. I have a book that I recently obtained, A Time of Departing, written by Ray Youngin. Ray Youngin is a evangelical minister, a very conservative evangelical minister. This book was written for the evangelicals because he's warning them, this, what we've just talked about, is spreading rapidly across. It says you're forgetting the doctrines, you're forgetting the Word, the Bible, and you're moving toward an experience. That your whole religion is now an experience. You must feel a tingling, you must feel the deep love, some sort of physical thing. And he is warning and showing how the majority of writers in the field of the evangelical world, he says the Catholics started it, it went to the mainline Protestants. Now he says it's sweeping through the evangelicals and these large mega churches. And the greatest leader of them all is propagating this thing. And this is the same as the yoga, in my judgment, and I'm simply here telling you how I understand. If you don't agree, that's your privilege. As I understand it, we're talking the same as the yoga of the Hindu. It leads to the same point. What does it lead to? Interspirituality. What does that mean? We all join together in the Spirit. Don't worry, you don't need to change from Buddhist or animist to Methodist or to evangelical or to Adventism. We all come together. And as I look at page 588 and 589 in Great Controversy, we're told that spiritualism will bring miracles to us and usher in a new religion. And we're there. By the multiple millions. World around, not just America. Prayer and meditation. I typed in the prayer and meditation on the E.G. White ROM. It's over 600 hits. I looked at 200 of them and I said, that's enough. Not one of them did I see any place about becoming all muscles relaxed and reciting a mantra and deep rhythmic breathing. Take your Bible and in prayer, you think. You don't put passivity of mind. You put it into thought with God leading. You don't put yourself in a position that when you do this, you bring God into yourself. You wait for Him, yes, in prayer, but in thinking, so that the Holy Spirit can come in. This, I believe, this point we've been talking about, will be the most powerful point that brings the world together under one power. That is what the secret societies I told you about last night, that's their whole purpose, to bring us back to that ancient religion. I teach Daniel and Revelation at my church. We go through for 2 years and take another group and go through for 2 years. And I point out to them that this study, many people have died, will be in the kingdom that never knew and understood Daniel and Revelation. But we live in a time we need to know which side of those two groups we're in. It's very easy to think we're in the one that receives salvation, because they'll both be worshiping and proclaiming God. But one will keep the commandments of God, and one will have an experience. Hatha Yoga, purpose, release blocked in congested energy. Universal energy, stimulate the activity of the chakras, create the spiritual awareness. Hatha, ha means sun, tha means moon. Sun and moon together in yoga union to bring us into union with Brahman. We put some different names to it, and it moves into our church. Now, the yoga exercise is also something very common and very frequently done in churches. They gather together and have an exercise. What exercise is the best exercise? Walking. Who says so? Ellen White. Medical science says so. Over and over I've read that. And so what do you get physically in doing these particular motions that you don't get in walking? Nothing. And one man that I took up his writings on the internet says what you're really doing in these exercises, you're putting the poses representing certain gods of the Hindu. And in all practical purposes, you are bowing down and worshiping them. That's his words. And here we have yoga exercise to the rising sun. I took this out of a journal promoting it, not contra. Comment from Let Us Reason. The poses that so diligently practice in their stretching are named after Hindu gods. And what is one actually doing? Is calling on them. In that worshipful pose, they are bowing and for all intents and purposes worshiping that God. Our God says, you shall not bow down to them or worship them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God. We mentioned those points. This as the basis of the mind-body treatments that are so common and popular today is the movement of that particular energy. Out of here come at least 40 different modalities by name, but they're all the same. Here is a woodcut showing where they used to deal with these points, marma points, with burning with a hot iron. This goes back to 1462. It's not something new. It's old. They take an oil that's supposed to have been subjected to the sunlight, squeeze it out of the plant, put the plant in water maybe where it gets the sun, and then take it and get the oil. And on those points, a particular oil from a particular plant for a particular point for a particular illness is massaged in. And now massage is a great treatment. Swedish massage. Don't let me discourage you from that. The devil has taken something good and he's added his part into it. food is supposed to give us energy. The colored food, one doctor says, you take the colored foods, then hold them near the chakras, and you'll find out which food is best for which chakra by its color. Dr. Wheel, I believe that was. And they say there is subtle energy. There is energy above and beyond the speed of light in this food, and when you consume it, then it goes to these chakras at certain levels, and the transformers will bring it down into the etheric body, which now is transmitted to the dense physical body. That's why vegetarianism, one of the reasons vegetarianism is common in Hinduism. Herbs. Herbs are only used in conjunction with meditation or other things. It's not a mainstay, but it is used, and it's used in every culture. Herbs used as an energy. It's a bridge between the subtle energies, those energies faster than light in our body, with the cosmic forces, they say. Herbs always used with meditation and diet. They have no place otherwise. They basically replaced mercury. Mercury was used like water in the ages past. Aromatherapy, just another one of these modalities. You get the oils, and they have subtle energies. Subtle means energies that are faster than our speed of light, and one of those ranges of the other 6 levels. So supposedly these energies, you smell it, you get it into your body, it's through the transformer, it goes now to the etheric plate, into our dense body, corrects balance, and we are more helpful. I don't know how to pronounce that. Can somebody help me? How is that? Okay, whatever you say is right. I don't know. The ama is the toxins. Now, purification treatment is a big part of Hinduism. And you'll find in this country, purification is a big aspect of the interest of many people. And it's important to be free of toxic things. It's true. And in our environment, there are abundance, no question. We agree with that. The ama speaks about in the digestion process, somehow the food supposedly doesn't get digested, and a white sticky substance is formed, which now moves out through channels that science hasn't found yet. And it goes and gets into cells and sticks everywhere around the body in cells. And so there are a variety of cleansing therapies to get these toxins out. Nobody's measured them. Nobody's found it. Nobody can measure the deals. But it's a very, very prominent belief and practice. Agni, the fire in the body, really refers to the regular metabolism of our body. So here's the areas that are purified. Nasal, the intestinal tract, through vomiting and laxatives. Enemas, bloodletting, and we'll go with each one a little bit. And there are ways of irrigating the nasal passages or injecting substances in there that cause profuse discharge of mucus, and this is called cleansing. What it is, it's trying to save itself. But irrigation types, they'll do it every so many days. This is a regular ritual of many people believing in this. That hasn't taken hold as much, I believe, as some other things, but it is there. The old days of 2 centuries ago, vomiting, I wondered where did they ever find out ipecac? You know, doctors here, those that are doctors in the emergency room, ipecac is used constantly. Why? Somebody comes in with poisoning, you get that horrible stuff down, and pretty soon they're vomiting. And it's good to use it that way. But I always wonder, where did they find it? Who ever looked for such a thing? Well, if we had time, we'd get into alchemy, and now I understand why so many thousands of things have been found. But that's not our subject here. But emetics, something to put in there to make us vomit ever so often, to cleanse out these impurities. You see, there's a belief spreading around everywhere that our intestinal tract gradually builds up coating that in time gets black and tough and hard like rubber. And it gets so big and so thick you can't absorb food and you become malnourished. That when Presley died, they found his colon weighed 40 pounds because it had about that thick of this coating on there. And John Wayne, his colon was 60 pounds. It was on the internet. And it had so thick food and the debris could hardly come through anymore. Now this comes from people that have never looked in a colon, have never been in surgery. And if you think of the years that we've had the fiber optics, we've had the different methods. I was in Vietnam in surgery, the bullets would go through the intestines and you would have to repair them. We never saw any of this. I've looked up into the intestinal tracts and I've never seen any coating like this. I've never seen a doctor that said he saw one. But it's gospel truth. Literally multiple millions of examinations without ever finding it. By x-rays, CAT scans, MRIs. And yet there's a belief. And so there must be particular ways to treat this. And so I've got something for sale, they say, to do that. And there's regular systems of getting your system clean. Well, I'm not, you can do it if you want. But I want you to understand perhaps its origin. Are we following? Am I following into the belief system? I don't know. Medicated enemas. They have more than 100 types of medicated enemas in practice regularly in Hinduism. And there is that going on around us today. As a physician, I used to run into it. Where in the world did this come from? You've heard of the coffee enemas everywhere. Very common. Out of this. Bloodletting. Well, that's gone by its way. But how about, and see, when they used to take blood, they would use a guide by the horoscope or the zodiac to figure out where to draw the blood. Urine therapy. Have you heard of this one? Well, if you go to Russia, it's not as broad now, not as widespread now, but if I had gone in 92, 93, I would have found most of the church members drinking urine every morning. Or many of them. But enough missionaries, physicians went there that gradually that went away. The last time I was conducting services among them, I asked how many here have drunk their urine. There were several that raised their hands. How long ago? About 2 years ago. What stopped? I joined the church. It's supposedly a purification. For years I couldn't figure out where did this come from. It came from India. And when I show them here that it's out of Indian Hinduism, my problem's over. And in fact, just a few months ago, I was talking to a Russian, an engineer in Portland, Oregon, in a hospital there. And he just had 2 weeks of drinking urine to clear up his sinus. He says it was tough, but it worked. And I was going to put that in the book, and somebody says, get that out of there. So I didn't put it in. But this is all a process of purification, so-called. If Satan can befog and deceive the human mind as to lead mortals to think there is an inherent power in themselves to accomplish great and good works, they cease to rely upon God to do them for them, that which they think there is power in themselves to do. The peril of some of this. So it's like tasting of the forbidden fruit. Now that's Genesis 3:4. It's actually Russian there. I couldn't change that. But let me just take a moment of traditional Chinese in the last 6 minutes. The Chinese traditional medicine goes way back, and it is documented in their books. The Pa Kwa is the circle of harmony with the 8 conditions under which it is the hot and the cold, the dry, the wet, and so forth, these different conditions that explain all illnesses. But I want to come on to another section here. The Yellow Emperor in 26 BC, the author of the I Ching medical text, wrote down a great deal for us that we have today so that we can look back. And Taoism, T-A-O, Taoism, the way. 3 basics. Man is an image of the cosmos. Astrology is the basis. Qi, composed of yin and yang, that's that energy that is supposed to move through us. The basic elements, metal, water, wood, fire, and earth, we dealt with last night. But association, this association between man and the planets is prominent. The chi composed of those two parts, the divisions. And again, the balancing. The balancing is the object of health and healing. The balancing of energy. The water, wood, fire, earth, and metal. Supposedly through the universe, these are worked so in such manner as to bring forth creation. And again, the balance. They have another system, though, is like cures like. A walnut looks like a brain. So if you feed walnuts, you're going to have a better brain. And this is multiplied in hundreds of ways on a variety of things. Now over there, they got pigs that got straight tails. And when I write about this, somebody says, you're crazy. Pigs' tails are curled. If you eat a pig's tail, it says you grow up to have a straight spine. But a pig's tail is always curled. Evidently, their pigs aren't. When I found this particular picture, it helped me solve the answer for that question. But this is like deals with like. And what is that? Yeah, ginseng. And it looks like a body, so it cures everything. Now, it may be a good product, but this is one of their systems of thought. And a tiger's heart, he's got courage. So if you eat a tiger's heart, you will have courage. How many have gone into a really large Chinese drugstore? Okay, if you were to go into one in Vancouver, Washington, it's an experience. I challenge you to identify what you see. All parts of animals of all sorts, everything. Now, the methods of balancing energy in China are somewhat different than just meditation. Meditation is there, but meditation is in stillness or it's in action. Tai Chi is meditation. Qigong is meditation, but it's in action. It's still to put your mind and connect with a different power. They have the regular part. Acupuncture is to balance. We'll go into that just a bit more. Meditation, exercise, breathing in the essence. You breathe in the chi. My wife and I were in a park over there, and here was this guy just really doing these motions, and all of a sudden, whoosh! So we asked him, what's the blow? Oh, it's getting rid of the excess energy. He was doing a Tai Chi, balancing the moon and the sun, he said. Used to obtain physical and spiritual perfection. The exercise used to help energy find the center of the body. The Qigong and the martial arts came before much of the rest of traditional Chinese medicine. It's the forerunner of Chinese medicine. You go through all of the towns and you see these little rooms for the martial arts practicing. That's as much a problem as getting into the sitting and the meditating. Because what they're going to be teaching you as you go along further and further is that you're balancing the energy. It's what the word means, Qigong. Energy balanced. Perfect. So that there is like a rod going down through your body and deep down into the earth. And when you have perfected it perfectly, they cannot push you over. I gave a talk in a church one time on this, and a young man, one of the elders, came up afterwards and he says, "You're right. I was taking that course. 3 of us could not move our instructor." I went to another church, Spanish, and the same thing was told me. Yeah. And so, it's a very popular thing, but not understood by most. And it's as you get further up that these things are brought in. So you can be meditating motionless or moving in meditation. Qigong teaches the finding the center of the body to attain perfect balance as a prerequisite to health. And when in the perfect balance is obtained, the person cannot be upset. There is a power there that holds them. How harmless. And yet we are stepping into territory we would better be apart from. Remember last night we mentioned the things that Eve did. She went into the territory she was warned against. The life energy, the Qi Kong. In the body there are two forms, the yin, the yang, combined health, yes. But what's interesting, when he becomes very profound, he can transfer this energy. You don't have to do anything. He can transfer it by his own hands. The Chinese concept of physiology that is built upon astrology. There the Qi moves around the body. The body has 12 organs. And the Qi is prominent in one organ for 2 hours. That's a Chinese hour. 2 of our hours is a Chinese hour. And so for 1 hour of Chinese, Qi is strong in one organ. Then it moves to another. And in the 12 hours, it goes around the zodiac, shall we say, to strengthen the part. And this brings true proficiency in the Qi. It flows constantly through those meridians. The meridians are supposedly the channels to carry it. Originally, when it was found, they didn't know that blood went through vessels, and sickness was caused by spirits. Spirits lived in caves and in holes. And the body was supposed to have a lot of holes, and so with illness, they felt that there were spirits inside, and by opening and enlarging holes, the spirit would come out, the demons would come out. Eventually, it moved to where there was points where you were supposedly balancing the energy rather than letting the demons out. And at one point, there was 12 meridians and 365 points, or holes, to let the demons out. But now you would probably find 2,000 points, and I think there's 14 or so, or so many things. It changed a little bit with time. I have a paper on this that's the best one I've read, probably close to 400 references. This man did an in-depth study. He found that actually it was about 70, 80 years BC when acupuncture was really, truly beginning to be utilized and described. The literature before would talk about bloodletting, but they didn't really describe the acupuncture. The acupuncture is a method by which you put a needle, or you can put a light, or you can burn something, or you can put a magnet, and it's supposed to balance the energy that comes up through the meridian to that point and it is distributed elsewhere. But they're all based upon the zodiac. All of the exercise is based upon strengthening the meridians, which are built upon carrying the Qi, the astrological concepts. The old business of taking the pulse. All right, Dr. Adams, you've taken pulse many times. You're interested, how is it regular? Does it have a good beat? Does it have a strange type of rhythm? Is there no pulse? But the pulse therapy had nothing to do with that. They were telling where the Qi was insufficient in what part of the body and where to put the needles by the pulse. That was the purpose of taking that, looking at the tongue the same. So we had these variety of points that were eventually worked out, and today they're commonly known. There was 12 meridians fit with the zodiac. The actions of acupuncture, the Qi energy is believed to follow the meridians through the body. These have literal channels distributing the energy to the internal organs. They are localized points on the skin where connections to meridians are to be found. Pressure on or needling of those points is believed to cause a change in the flow of energy. So when these points are given pressure or needled, then corrections of energy flow is made, and so balance of the energy affects health and healing. Do people sometimes get better with acupuncture? Sure. This has nothing to do with whether you get better or not. This has to do with what Fred Harding this morning says, who does it? The results of the way of life, winds, over 100 diseases are felt to be caused by winds. And that's why they upturned roofs When the wind comes along with the demons, it shoots them back into the sky. At least that's what I was told when I was there. All right, many times we're going to do certain procedures like acupuncture to stop smoking. I never had patients that I found that could tell me that it worked. Maybe some did. I don't argue the point with them. But what I do want to bring out, you probably have heard that the National Institute of Health has come out with a proclamation that acupuncture works for certain things. And what I find as I read the article by a man that investigated this, a doctor, it was the Department of Drugs that did the study, and this group called in a group that had done studies in acupuncture, but they were the group that all believed in it, practiced, and proclaimed it. They did not call in any that had papers and had done research that showed it to be a negative effect. And they quickly passed it. It went through. Of course, the insurances now have to pay for it, and so it goes. So is it solid science? Not my understanding. Look in the history. What was the practice through 3 to 4 millennia in China? And what was their health status? In 1949, when the communists took over, average age 35 years of age. In 50 years, they had doubled it to 70. By acupuncture? By meditation? By clean streets, clean sewers, clean bodies, clean clothes. This is what changed it. They had a history. India has a history of thousands of years. Why would I want to go take a system, change my system for theirs in healing, when they have no history of it doing any good? Oh yes, now and then a person jumps up and says, I'm well. But what about the whole group? No history. Latent forces of the mind. The apostles of nearly all forms of spiritism claim to have the power to heal. Attribute this power to electricity, magnetism, so-called sympathetic remedies, or to latent forces within the mind of man. There are not a few, even in the Christian age, who go to these healers instead of trusting in the power of the living God and the skill of well-qualified physicians. Danger in investigating. We have reached the perils in the last days, when some, yes, many, shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits, doctrines of devils. Be cautious in regard to what you read, how you hear. Take not a particle of interest in spiritualistic theories. Satan is waiting to steal a march upon everyone who allows himself to be deceived by his hypnotism. He begins to exert his power over them just as soon as they begin to investigate his theories. The mother watching by the sickbed of her child exclaims, I can do no more. Is there no physician who has power to restore my child? She's told of the wonderful cures performed by some clairvoyant or magnetic healer, and she trusts in her dear one to his charge, placing it as verily in the hand of Satan as if he were standing by her side. In many instances, the future life of the child is controlled by a satanic power which it seems impossible to break.